Hey, you guys. So we are back, and today it is all about the topic of should Black women divest? What is divestment? What does divestment mean to you or to me? Is it beneficial for us now to divest ourselves from Black men? But I don't really feel that way about divestment, or at least that's not what it means to me all the way. That's not how I would describe it for myself or my definition of it. But we are going to dig into this discussion. There's been recent news events that has come out about how men are now lonely. They're lonely guys in this town, like May said, and they're finding it very hard to have relationships and partners now that women are finally starting to get it and raise their standards. And we want them to live up to certain expectations that they're just not meeting, certain skill sets that they don't have. And they're finding it hard out here in these streets. It's going to be a very cold winter.
It's gonna be a very cold winter.
A lot of homeless situations are about to go down. But yeah, we're gonna get into all of that. I definitely want to touch on that article that came out last week about the rise of lonely single men.
Hmm.
'Cause I found that alarming. I found it not well, no, I didn't
I
find it.
found it interesting. I
I
wasn't
did not
alarmed
find
by
it
it.
alarming. Yeah, I found it very interesting because I feel like it's something that as women we all knew. Like I started realizing that whenever guys, it's a lot of projection that guys do already anyways, so whenever they use these scare tactics or these fear tactics towards women, like, oh, that's why you're single now, or oh, I know
That's
you
why
ain't,
you're gonna die
you
alone.
gonna die alone. Right? And it's like usually that's the opposite. Like I feel like we can actually survive and thrive without a penis person,
Right.
whereas for the penis people, y'all really can't survive and thrive on your own. You do better in partnership as far as your health is concerned. We know that. And as far as a lot of other things is concerned, you do better when you are coupled or you are being taken care of or in a relationship.
Right.
So we know that's not true. So I really want to touch on that article. I'm going to pull that up. And then why don't you tell us, first of all, how has your week been going?
My week is going good. My little boy starts school next week, so I've been doing the whole let's get things together, get you situated, get you back on a sleep schedule. And he didn't jump sizes on me, so like I've been trying to break down the small stuff and make room for the new stuff. Other than that, we just been chilling, getting ready, getting back into the groove of things. I'm letting him run amok for his last week before we get back into stuff, but we're
Yeah.
doing good. How's your week been?
Yeah, so the same thing. When my girls, they start school in 3 weeks after Labor Day is when they start school. They start school like on the 7th of September. So
Oh,
now, it's the adjustment thing. The bedtime has to change back to normal time. So I'm gonna be doing that schedule with the littlest one starting next week. Back to your regular schedule program. So we won't have no I'm up all night problems. Um,
right.
I still gotta go school shopping. Y'all do no tax week? Because I'm trying to wait it out for no tax week.
They did no tax week down here, I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't really
Um,
make a difference, but I'm waiting for the no tax week to go back to school shopping.
well, I looked up and ended up getting all of his school stuff minus like one item or two from Staples for like $20. Like their prices was like less than Dollar Tree. So I looked up on the weekend to get all his school supplies, and then I did his shoes and stuff. Like he's not rough on shoes at all, thank God. So the shoes he got now, we're gonna wear them at least, going into the holidays, and then I'm gonna get him new shoes and stuff at Christmas. Cause his black shoes, blue shoes, red every shoe looks still good. So I'm lucky for that. And we got t-shirts, we got shorts, we got the Space Jam LeBron James book bag. So we just got to get him a haircut and lotion him down. He'll be ready to go.
All right. So, you guys, let's jump right into the subject matter. Okay. So, this article came out and it like blew everyone away. This is all the internet was talking about and buzzing about. All the guys was going off about either majority of them that I seen was salty about this article that came out. Some of them was like, what did we expect? Right? I mean, the
Right.
realistic ones that don't live in the land of delusion. Like, what do y'all expect? Like, what is there for you guys, for us to like about you guys at this point? So I'm just gonna go through the highlights of this article. It came out last week, August 9th. The
Mm-hmm.
rise of lonely single men. Key points. Dating opportunities for, and this is all men. So this isn't even just black men. This is all of y'all. Because all of y'all is a hot mess. Okay. Dating opportunities for heterosexual men are diminishing. Relationships rise. That's
Hold on, you're going in and out. Yeah. As soon as you started talking, you started going in and out.
either standard women
Yeah, hold on. It's it's giving feedback real bad when you're talking. I know you're talking now, but you sound real robot-ish.
I sound oh,
It didn't froze you. What in the world?
me.
I can. I heard you say, "Can you hear me?" It's
Men
like you're
represent
frozen.
62%. I might switch over to my phone. 62% of dating apps lowering their chances for matches. And men need to address their skill deficits to meet healthier relationship expectations. That's the one I
Right.
really want to focus on because they are lacking in a lot of soft skill sets. I don't know if you remember in school, they used to teach you about hard skills, and hard skills are like learning to do stuff, learning how to do a job. And then your soft skill sets is like interacting with others, your people skills, and things
Right.
like that. They are severely lacking in their soft skill sets because it's like y'all never really had to develop them. And so they just got forgotten about. You can talk to a guy and they can give you no conversation. There's nothing there. They don't know how to conversate. The lack of emotional intelligence,
Oh, the emotional intelligence is not even existent.
it's non existent almost. It's like, come on, like you have to give women something. Now, these days, it's not going to fly where, oh, I'm this macho man and like you should need me in your life. And, like we don't care. Like the thrill is gone. Like, yes, there was a time in our lives where we were all boy crazy and just to be around one of y'all, like, oh, he's so fine. It's like, okay, the thrill is gone now. Let's get to the meat. And it's
Like
like,
y'all can't converse. Y'all won't
yeah,
converse. And anger seems to be the only emotion that y'all have. And I don't understand
willing
why
to
that
show.
is.
Anger or frustration is the only emotions that they're willing to show us. Outside of that, you're not getting much else. You're not going to get any any reciprocity. You're not going to get good communication skills when y'all need to have a conversation and they're willing to work things out with you. You're not going to get what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? Like, why don't you tell me what's going on? You're not going to get none of that.
I don't know what they want. Just because it's like you'll have one guy who never got over the fact that Sheila from the 10th grade turned him down, and now he just can't get over that. Like he's not willing to be open because Sheila just ruined it all for everybody. I think there was a clip from Ace Metaphor's podcast where it was all the men, and they were like, what do you think like being a man means? And they were like, well, we don't really know. I'm just paraphrasing. We don't really know, but we know is what we shouldn't be, and we shouldn't cry because that's like a woman. We shouldn't this. And I was like, so are y'all saying out loud that because of how you were raised, you were never really shown, even with the men who had examples, you were never even shown what a man actually is because those standards were not put in place for you guys. So, so y'all look contradictory because
Right.
when women say, "Hey, you want to be leaders, what's your plan?" You don't have a plan because you don't know how to lead because you were never taught how to lead the same way you were never taught how to be a man. Y'all just proved our point.
Right. Or how they
So,
like we can't tell them what being a man is, but like I always say, I feel that we can. And I feel like I just like you said, obviously you have no clue. You don't know what the definition is. You don't know how to define it. I was seeing some guy and he had posed a question outside of tangible, outside of well, I can get a lot of women and I drive this car and I have this amount of money. What is your definition? Like, what is the definition of masculinity? Like, they don't have a clue outside of these assets, things that you acquire does not make you a me.
mm-mm. I just don't. I just feel like at a certain point in time, especially with the rise in Jeff Bezos selling podcast microphones, at some point, why was there not a sit down amongst our men? Because I've only dated within our community. Why wasn't there a conversation that said, "Hey, for what our community needs now, what do we need to do to step up as men? Like, what is our definition of being a black man and how it translates over into our community?" They're not having those conversations,
Mhm.
like, at all. They're not holding Gerald and Jaquan responsible for not taking care of their kids. They're not doing it. They
Right.
all got homeboys that they can't take everywhere because they creeps.
That
Where's the accountability that y'all keep yelling at us to take? Where is it?
part, right. I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. Like, y'all literally have friends who aren't taking care of their kids. Like, that's weird. Like, that is, don't you find that weird? Like, you are a great father. You're taking care of your kids. You see a baby girl every day. You provide, you
Mm-hmm.
send money, you help out your children's mother or whatever. And then here go your friend. And you don't have conversation with them or address them or like, yo, I feel like you need to be stepping up more and your kids like they need to bring shame back. Shame need to come back in style because I think like, at a certain point that was not just something that was so normal like that. You have all these people running around having random kids here, there, everywhere, dropping them off and just wiping their hands, not taking care.
Like, oh, she shouldn't have let me get her pregnant. Like, come on
I
now.
let you. She should well shoot. She the one who opened her leg. It's always on us. We are always the responsible party for everything that happens. Women.
And that's part of the patriarchy that they're suffering under as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can get a woman pregnant once a month and have 12 babies in a year, you're the problem, sir. Like, I don't understand that. We can't get pregnant, but what, one time a year once we're pregnant?
And then it take you, another full year to heal. Hopefully, it takes you another full year to heal from that pregnancy.
Right.
Mm,
It's weird to me. The just the insatiable need to not take accountability, but then force a ton of accountability down the throats of women, and then wonder why we're like, you know what, if we don't deal with you, will I have better peace of mind? Is this better for my mental sanity? Like, I thought I'd be married by now with 2.5 kids and the picket fence. Like, we were sold the dream too.
hmm.
But now a
Yes,
lot of us are accepting that, hey, maybe that's no longer the dream, and we
right.
need to adjust and adapt.
And yeah, so I think like a lot of times people think when you talk about divesting, it doesn't always necessarily mean you're divesting from, okay, I'm divesting from black men or, F y'all, I'm gonna go over here because I think this
Hmm.
male group is better. Like you was just making a point of I can just simply be divesting because you know what, I would rather have my peace of mind.
Correct.
rather have like that video you sent me with that white woman who was talking about being basically divesting. You know what? I would rather be single and at peace than
Right.
so
I
divestment
know.
be anything that you feel like it should be for you, not just simply F men, F these guys over here, F these ones over there. It could just simply be, you know what, I'm going to remove myself from a situation with a group of people who I feel like is causing me anxiety or stress, or it's just not worth the energy and effort. So I would rather just be alone. Some people are absolutely content and happy with being by themselves.
Well, not just that, and me and you had a conversation about my mutual from TikTok in reference to divesting. And the point that they were trying to make was, well, where are you divesting to? I was like, I'm divesting to minding my business.
Right.
I'm divesting to saying, hey, I know I wanted to be married by 25 and I thought I would be going through this, but my lived experience dating within our community has said, you know what? Maybe you need to just step back. Maybe marriage is not for you. And you need to start, I guess, grieving the idea that you would be married young, and start to accept what the reality actually is, because that's what a lot of us is doing. We're sad about what we thought would happen, but now are starting to accept what our realities will look like, which include us having a good mental health, us having, the hard conversations where it's like, hey, I thought I'd be married, but right now it's not for me. I'm divesting and making sure that my health is good and I'm in a good place, mentally, physically, financially, and emotionally. Most of us have children. It's like I want to be in a good mind state so that I can give my child the best version of me possible. And if that means that I have to divest where I'm not heartbroken or stressed out extra over situations that are avoidable, then it is what it is. It's not even basically about divesting to another race of people, because I know when I said that I'm divesting, I wasn't worried about no other man from no other race. Like
Right. They don't
that
even
wasn't where I
cross
was
your mind.
going.
Right. It doesn't even cross your mind. Like, I don't know. I think some people got a lot of what the definition, like everyone then took this word anyways and made it their own. And that's fine because that's what happens with any word or trend or movement is you take it and it becomes something different, and then it's all these mini subsets of this one and these, there's all different type of divestors. These ones have their set agenda and their beliefs, and these
Mhm.
ones over here. So it's different subsets, I feel like, within this whole umbrella of divestment.
Right.
Let me pull up our next video and then we can go off of give our commentary on this one.
Okay.
Let me see what tab it is. Yeah.
Timing us? Are you saying that it's our? Watch this. Oh, let's talk about it.
And we came here with her.
Are you blaming us? Are you saying that it's our fault that this happened?
No, I'm not blaming Black America women. I just said that I'm blaming the system. They are victims of the system, like the black male.
Well, why do you say that we are castrating you? You say that you want to be the leaders. Okay. Well, what about the black professional woman? Are you saying that there should be no black professional woman? Are you trying to deny black women the right to be creative, the right to function?
We're not asking for you to take a back seat. We're saying that you have got to be astute enough and can view the situation well enough where you just automatically know what your role is and step back. And whenever you want to have that aggressive thing, this is the thing that the young black man today is not going to tolerate. My old man tolerated because his old man tolerated. It came up for years and years and years. But today, the young black man is not going to take it. He's going to be out there as a leader. White America has used black women to keep the black male in his place. And you're still aiding him by saying, well, we are qualified, we want to work, we can help.
Okay, how are you going to reprogram men so that they don't let us take over what's supposed to be their responsibility? And men that I have had dealings with, they are perfectly willing to sit back and let us do anything we want to.
I don't think that you have to reprogram men. I think you have to reprogram women.
No, you have to reprogram the man so that he will forcefully take what belongs to him, because you know women, as long as we can get, we're gonna get, and it's part of our being. We're going to do anything to you that you let us, whether we want to or not.
You don't want to live on the level of income that I can afford you in love. Me, on the basis of that, you want to always be inspired to have all those things that's a part of the great middle class white American society. And because I can't deliver these things to you, you say that you are not a man.
We're talking about 3 generations of Black men who have a severe aversion to accountability, responsibility, leadership, and progression. 3 generations. And to think, I was under the impression that this was just because of the rise of Kevin Samuels, because he's bitter about his mother. This has been happening since my mother was a child in the 60s. I've been saying this a lot. The Black community hasn't progressed since the 70s. But at this point, this is beyond past embarrassment and disappointment and shame. If you are highly educated, if you have the income and the resources, wash your hands and completely divest.
You know how heartbreaking that is? And this is the talking point that happened. Remember, I told you me and one of my mutuals had words on one of our lives, and I became emotional, but I was trying to kind of hold it together because I have respect for this person, and I don't want any words that we would need to have privately come across social media a certain type of way. But this was the rhetoric they were talking about. But did
Right.
you hear him say, well, if you can't live the life that I can afford, while you out here aspiring to want the middle class white family thing, then y'all need to change y'all's mindset. How is that not saying you need to settle for less, but make sure you choose better? Like,
Mhm.
how is, like, that is so weird to me. 1968, my sister was 2 when that was recorded.
Word elect, like they won't let. And so she's trying to make the point, like, so the guys that I've been with, they completely are, they basically, they went, they like, they don't care. They letting me go out here and do what I got to do. Like they are allowing that. So how can we let them be these leaders that you say that y'all are supposed to be? He ain't have no answer. He just kept on going with
He
what he
said, no, we need to reprogram the women.
women.
To do what exactly, sweetheart? Because at that particular moment, she's saying, if we have a career, you want us to sit down and let our career go. If we have, excuse me, a need to be creative, to flourish in some type of way, you want us to sit down. But then when you're saying, y'all, you should settle for the life that I can afford. What if you can't afford nothing? We gonna be living in a car box condo? Like, I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when me and my mutual had words, and they brought up, oh, the government tore apart the Black family, so that the Black woman could take assistance. I said, did y'all even read that article? Did
Mm-hmm.
y'all read any of it? Because if you did, you would understand that there were certain demographics of people in certain locations geographically that no man in the house rule applied to. That was not across the 50 states, and it lasted, I think they said, at the most 50 years. And they were talking about the men who were in the house that were able-bodied to work, that was refusing to work, and also not the fathers of the children. At no point in time in the report that I read did it say that the fathers of the children were being kicked out,
Right.
because they were already gone. They called it a poor man's divorce
Mm-hmm.
because
He
they were
died.
already gone.
He would just go out the door. Where did I think that Dear John letter came from? He'll be like, I'm about to just go to the corner store and get some cigarettes, and then they just never come back.
Right. Y'all made a plan to leave and never come back, but then y'all saying it's the government's fault. And like, we know where we live. We know the history of this country. We all know this. And if you don't know, Google is free. My
Mm.
time is not. I'm not about to sit here and argue with something that is Google. Like, you can look it up on Google. But when I asked my mutual, I said, okay, once the time was over, for these restrictions. Why didn't our protectors and leaders come back and pick up their families? No response.
Right. They was
I,
running. I mean, this that simply put, they was running out. I don't think any woman, especially back in those times, come on now, think about it. I don't think any woman would have been kicking out the men or the fathers of the children in the home. They were leaving.
right.
So I mean, I
And
think
leaving willingly.
that's been like we're always saying we're tired. And so some women are just choosing peace over this or over dust or over struggling or over settling or over listening to all of the excuses as to why you can't do, or, I'm having to be put into this hyper independent role and I have to take on the role of the masculine because you're not doing it. And so I would rather just do it by myself.
There's another video that I'm gonna post where the woman was like, y'all are talking about y'all being needed, but if y'all are not even conversing with sense, like nothing that's happening, like I think the example she used, she was like, when something happened with my car, I didn't call the man I was dealing with. I called my, a friend. When I didn't have, food, I called my homegirl. I never called the man that I was involved with because I knew, regardless of how much I was involved with that person, they were not reliable. If you're not the person that I can call on when I need something, why do you feel so pressed about being needed? Now, if I want you, great. But if you no longer serve my wants, you can go. Y'all caused this,
Hmm.
and you're still blaming women.
All right, so let's talk about it in a way of maybe everyone out there that's watching, or when you watch the playback, you may not know what divestment or this divested movement is. So, for you, what would you consider it to be, and do you consider yourself that?
Excuse me. The young lady whose video you showed is somebody who I follow on social media, and I listened to her breakdown of divesting when it comes to black women making sure their mental health is intact and that they have their peace, and stop arguing, especially with the men who have this dialogue where you have to be submissive and all the things that doesn't necessarily serve us but serve them. They don't really want partnerships. And when I first saw her video, like maybe 3 months ago, a part of my subconscious was like, she right. But
Mm,
my heart was just like, no, we'll be hopeful. Maybe if we just keep talking to them, eventually, they'll get it.
mm,
Divesting for me at this particular point in my 35-year-old life means I'm not going to go out my way to not only not date, but to engage in certain conversations that is going to have me feeling like I have to defend all black women because this black man doesn't even give me the common courtesy to listen to what I'm saying. There's
mm,
a lot of conversations that are happening that comes off as if our men are more oppressed than we are. And instead of our men adapting to the way society has changed, we get a plethora of excuses for why they just refuse to do better and be better. And
mm,
if that's where they want to stay, then that's fine. But me personally, I don't have to sit in that because I have to adapt to what is currently going on, regardless of if I'm sad, emotional, angry, pissed off, whatever. That doesn't change my skin color. That
mm,
doesn't change my socioeconomic situation. I have to make shit shake regardless. If not, then I'm beat down even worse. So at this point, it's like, hey, I need to take some time back. If somebody happens to come along and we have like-minded values and our personalities align to where we say, hey, we want to visit a relationship, then I'm open to having that dialogue if and when it comes along. But as of right now, my divestment looks like I'm stepping back. I'm being aware of what my intentions are as far as who I converse with and who I don't. I'm going to be mindful that I need to be gentle with myself and my emotions and be aware of my mental health and getting and seeking the help that I might need to heal and grow to be a better woman and a better mother for my son and protect my peace. I'm also going to look into gun safety classes because we
Mhm.
also know that there's a diagram a die I'm losing my words. There's a demographic of men who won't protect black women if they see them being attacked. So I need to also be able to protect myself and my child because I don't have that person to fall back on that would have my back in the event that something goes left.
Right. Yeah. Um, I was just looking for this one video that I wanted to
And
share.
I'm not bashing them. I want them to do better. But I want them to do better without the coddling. I
Right.
want them to do better without all the extra excuses. I want
Hmm.
them to do better and come together as a demographic of black men and figure out what is being a man and what does it look like for them. And then they adjust and they grow.
Podcast.
Hi.
Yes, you're on my podcast. She is such a great lady to follow over on Facebook. Let me put my invite link in here. So for me, right,
Hmm.
I don't know when I came across the divested movement or community. Like I want to say maybe within the last 5 years, I would say, right? When I first
Right.
came into it, just like bro, I didn't know who I didn't know who Pink Mahogany was. I didn't know who Visions was. I didn't know who say Cynthia G was. I didn't know who none of these people who are like heads of this movement or like very pivotal and prominent in this movement. I didn't know who none of them was. Um and I'm just on Facebook scrolling and I seen somebody post and it was like a page. I'm going through the page and everything. And then slowly but surely I started, figuring out who these people were and following them and everything like that. I will say that when I first got into divestment and, following it and stuff, I was like one of those people who was like, you see, who I always tell you about Caramel and how she be going in, going in, going in, right? I used to do
Hmm.
that so much, but I feel like that's not me. That's not who I am. That's not my energy. That's not what I want to put out. Because you do have those divestors that are just that can just sit there and drill all day and
Right.
go and you dusty and you trash bag this and you because my goal isn't at the end of the day, I really don't care to put anybody down, including black men
Right.
because it's not about that. It's more about me than about them. So I took a step back after that, like, okay, this is starting to affect my energy and how I personally am myself as a person. So I took a step back. Now for me, I feel like my depiction and my version of what divestment is just me my emotion and stop emoting myself into this group of people. Just like
Right.
like I always say, I divested myself from white people. I do not center whiteness. I don't care about them in that way. I'm not going to see them posting about, I seen this post and I was so close. I was so close to making a Stitch video, but I stopped myself, right? Because it triggered the hell out of me. And it
Right.
wasn't the white guy. The white guy didn't trigger me. It was me seeing all the comments from black people, like giving him cookies, like because he's a decent person for saying, I support the black community and basically, the black people, they became my allies before I ever became theirs, and they taught me to like just giving us accolades, basically, right? And he was doing a response to another response. And y'all are just in there applauding him, inviting him to the cookout and the barbecue, and he can come over anytime. And he down and giving him cookies. And I don't understand why we do that. It irks my soul because it's like I don't care. Like he's a good guy, he's a good person. Okay, I don't care. So I divested in a sense of emotionally removed myself from them. I'm no longer emotionally invested into them in a way where you see the ones all the time. They have to put on their cape and they have to go up
Right.
to that and they have to go up to war. And why? Because they don't do that for you.
Correct.
So that's my version of divestment. And I also feel like there's some people within the movement because I'm just a lurker because I'm a quiet person. And I'm always, since I work from home, I'm always online on different internet streets, right? And I just noticed like there's a trend of certain divestors. I know I
Mm-hmm.
wanted her to come on, but she never responded back to me. Because I wanted to ask her like some pointed questions, but there's certain divestors that I feel like you have to know what you're divesting for,
Mm-hmm.
because if your reason is obviously you've been through a traumatic experience or you're deeply hurt and now it's just like you just have this rage and these mother effers and stuff like that. It's like it can't be all about them. You have to like heal yourself as well.
Right.
That's a deeper issue. Like you have to do your self-healing work. And so I watch out for those type of divestors because I feel like I can kind of see that they're in that space where like she is hurt and
She's still very hurt
she needs
behind what she went
to
through.
heal because it's like so much anger and so much rage behind it. So yeah, I just feel like I just emotionally divested myself from being too emotionally invested into men and especially into black men. And it's just like you just gotta let them be over there. Hi, Tanisha. Hi, Visions. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you on my podcast. I have posted on her post like, I'm doing the podcast and I want to know where this came from because Jamie Foxx said something interesting. Uh,
That wasn't Jamie Foxx that said that. What happened was one of the Manosphere used a picture of Jamie Foxx and did their own little thing on that.
Of course they did.
What he was trying to say was that women only choose to get married when we need somebody to push us in a wheelchair, which of course, that is a talking point that many women, especially black women, have said about how a lot of men only want nursemaids and that's when they choose to settle down. So what a lot of the manosphere does is take talking points from black women and women in general and twist the narrative to make themselves look like the victim. So that's what I was trying to say on that post.
because I'm reading, I'm like, Jamie Foxx said this. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he said it. I mean, we know he dates colored women, but I'm just like, he said, oh, okay, now I get it. So they're saying that we don't want to settle down until we have to have somebody push us in a wheelchair.
That's what somebody in the manosphere is trying to do because that article got a lot of these men in a chokehold. So it's like a lot of them are trying to come up with
Mm-hmm.
ways to kind of demonize women because they felt a little attacked by that article to the point where they even gave put out some death threats on the author of that article
What?
who just so happened to be a palm colored man. And it's like they're upset because they don't want to take accountability for the fact that the reason why there's not as many healthy relationships is because the men themselves are not healthy. And they want to try to make it seem like, no, it's women who's the problem. And I'm not saying that women are without fault. But at the same time, we have to admit that we live in a very toxic culture that was created by men, that is upheld by men and enforced by men
Right.
primarily. So it's like they don't see the whole systematic way that the way the system is set up, how it trickles down into interpersonal relationships between men and women. And it's like they don't want to take accountability for their toxic narratives of what manhood is and what they want from women and how women are supposed to quote unquote serve them to even get a breadcrumb of some sort of love and affection. So it's like, they don't want, and it's not just black men because I believe men of all other races took offense to that article. I seen it on TikTok. But primarily, I'm in black circles, so I mostly see black men talking about this. But yeah, I see y'all talking about divestment. Um, One thing I will say is this. I been divested since about 2018. And the reason why I chose to divest is because I was kind of like shouting out, like you were saying earlier, through rage and anger about what happened to my sister. And every time I would bring her up, a member of my race would come to me and try to suggest that I forgive the killer, that the problem of black women being murdered is, or let me rephrase, unalived is not an issue. So it kind of just further pushed me away because I kind of felt like I wasn't getting the empathy and the support that I needed from my community.
You were being invalidated, and it's
I
not
was
fair.
being Yes, I was being extremely invalidated. Nobody, I mean, when they saw that I was angry and I was saying, like, stop killing us, I'm sorry, stop unaliving us, stop, abusing us, it was met with such um resistance, where I kind of felt like nobody wants to change this issue. And I was just watching, before I came on here, a video from another YouTube channel who claims divestment, and she was pretty much saying like how there's a trend in Philadelphia, which is actually all over the United States, but the example was in Philadelphia, how black women and girls are being unalived. It went from like 79 to like 194 since 2018, and it's steadily increasing. And it's like nobody wants to talk about these issues because they don't want to make the black man look like an enemy. And that's why I had to choose to divest, because I had to say, I don't want to, even though I grew up loving my blackness and loving my people and loving black men, I don't want my love to blind me too much to where I can't see where one of them are my enemy.
Right.
So I had to do what I had to do to save myself, even not even just with the community around me, but even within my family. When I realized that I started talking more about black women's rights and treat black women like we're human, my family even started pushing away from me. Like, I became quote unquote a problem just for saying, like, look, one of our family members been killed by a black male member of her community. And even after she was killed, other families started trying to attack us to try to take custody of my sister's children. Like, we were going through so much and nobody reached out and checked on us. But when I started saying, like, this is kind of messed up and I feel some kind of way about it, now I'm the problem. So I had to let some even family members go. And I had to embrace more of a movement of self first and sisterhood first. Because from my experience, when I was going through all of that, I had to rely majority on myself to heal and to get myself into a better position mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially. And of course, I had a handful of sisters that covered me during that time. So I said, I'm supporting those who support me, and I'm paying attention to who's supporting me, and I'm paying attention to who's presenting themselves to either not be a supporter or to be downright an enemy of mine. So I think that, when it comes to divestment, it's about looking at who's in your circle. For some black women, there might be some black men in their circle. That might be her experience, but
Right.
that's just not my experience.
Okay, so since you've been in the this movement for a while, do you feel, because we was talking about this before we came on, do you feel that divesting is anti-black?
What I think is, I don't think anti-divestment is anti-black. I think it's anti-black men. And I want to be clear because from what I've gathered from the women that I follow, like on YouTube, and women I've had conversations with, they are really pro-black women. They're not anti-black women whatsoever, unless that woman positions herself to be anti-black woman, which there are women out there who are anti-woman.
Hmm.
But they're anti-black men, and I don't think that's the same as anti-black. It's not their blackness that they hate, it's the maleness that they hate. And then it's like, there's some women who they may date other races of men, but I kind of feel like if those men were to ever position themselves to be an enemy of them, they will cancel those men too. That's why I said, like it comes to the point where it's self first in a sense, and then it's sisterhood first. Because they don't, they, I mean, I don't see these women, having men on their shows all the time, or really hyping up no other race of men. They kind of harper down on black men only because black men are like we're most likely to be unalived by them. That's the only reason why they even bring them up. I kind of feel like the divestment movement is anti anyone who positions themselves to be an enemy of the black woman.
Well, a mutual of mine, when we had the dialogue, she had pulled out statistics in reference to what was happening to other women of other races, and she felt like there are people in the divestment community that are bashing black men. But then I explained to her kind of like my position on why I'm saying I'm divesting, and I can only use the experience where I have only been with black men. And she was like, but it comes off anti-black, because even with the femicide rate, I think she pulled up that I think Asian women were being unalived at a like 3 to 5% percentage higher than black women. And I was like, and that's unfortunate, but I'm talking about what's happening in our community, because at a certain point we had to put on our capes for everybody else. So what about us? Like, if you choose to say, hey, I'm like you said, protecting your peace and protecting yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, then you have to put yourself first when it comes down to divesting. I don't feel like for me personally, I don't feel like saying that I'm divesting means that I'm gonna be bashing black men, but I'm gonna be similar to Aya, where it's like I'm no longer gonna have the emotional reaction behind your foolishness. If you're not for us, then at this point you can just move along.
Right.
Yeah, I just feel like it's detrimental for us to move and navigate, especially now with the femicide rate and everything. And then you could just turn you you don't even have to turn on the darn TV or on social media content. You could, like they used to say in church, you could turn to your neighbor and see that there is a definite and a clear problem in our community. So I feel like it is detrimental to you, sis, to have your blinders on and to act as if you don't see anything and it doesn't exist. Like,
Hmm.
please be aware. Please move with discernment. Please make yourself aware of what is going on out there. Like, those that choose to ignore it, I don't understand. I was on some post, like this was like a few weeks ago on Facebook, and the girl, like, she got so upset because we always basically having this conversation. And it was like a few of them, as always, on par, talking about, they're so offended. How can you say this? And well, not the men that I'm around. I hate those, not all, and not the ones that I'm around. Y'all just need to surround yourself with. It's not even that. It's not even, oh well, the ones that I'm in proximity to isn't like that. Listen, collectively, this community and collectively, our group of men, there's a major issue. There's
Correct.
a major problem. And for you to ignore that and walk around with blinders on, that's not going to do anything but hurt you in the long run. Like, I just want y'all to be realistic here and see what's going on.
I like to call women like that out on their bluff, because if there were men out there doing anti-sexism work, just as much as they do anti-racism work, that man will have a huge following of women,
Yep.
um, taking in, regurgitating his talking points that he get from other women. I have to say that's what it is. A lot of these men that black women say are, a lot of these black men that black women say are good men, are not doing any sort of anti-sexism work. They are very silent about things that women face. And if they do, they might do one here or there, but they're not doing consistent work to try to challenge the system of patriarchy. So it's like, how good is he if he is silent about your oppression, even if he is not the one directly oppressing you? It's like there's a certain bro code within the black community, where it's like we don't see nothing, we don't hear nothing, so don't say nothing. That no snitching rule that goes on in the black community that affects many families who have had family members who've
He
been
kicked me off,
victimized
but okay.
by black men, it's like there's a certain protection, layer of protection over black men that even the
Can y'all hear
so-called
me?
good black men put over them.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you. So it's like, how good are these men if they're not doing any sort of anti-sexism work? Like in the black community, what do they call it? Black with a job, pretty much. If a black man pretty much has a job and he pays some bills, that's considered a good man in the black community.
I'm so glad you
If
said that. That was
nothing,
one of my
nothing,
exes.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
one of my exes. I kept giving him chance after chance because I had convinced myself from a young age that, oh my God, he works so hard and he pays bills and he loves his mama and he loves Jesus. That's a good black
Good
man.
man.
And if that was true about him, I would have been married at 21, and not him stringing me along from 17 till 33, and I still have two failed proposals and no marriage yet for it to end up him cheating on me. He was never really a good guy because he never could commit and execute and lead. And so you're absolutely right. Because for years I couldn't figure out like why I couldn't see past it outside of saying, "Oh yes, he good. He work hard, and he love his mother, and he loved Jesus." Now, like that was my rhetoric for like over a decade of making excuses as to why we hadn't yet married, why it was being so prolonged, why this, why that. Why I kept giving him chances. Oh, because he a good dude. I had convinced myself of that, and that's my fault. But you're absolutely right.
I think that when you're in a community where there's so much degeneracy, meaning people, or particularly black men who do not work, who have not finished school, who do not apply themselves to have some of a upward economic mobility, um just having that, oh well, at least he kind of narrative is able to thrive. So it's like it's a black male worshiping culture. It's almost like, you remember, it's almost like I like to use the reference of Hercules, like cheering them on for doing mediocre type stuff.
Right.
Like that's pretty much what it goes on in the black community, which is why I had to separate myself from the community, because I had to realize I was under a Stockholm type spell where I was making excuses to other people who were saying like, "Dang, you don't see black men saying this stuff about black women, you know?" And I was like, "No, I love black men. I will never give up on my black kings." It
Yep.
wasn't until my sister was killed that kind of shook me, and I said, "Well, hold on, take a moment and actually observe what goes on in the community and see if this is a healthy environment for you." And I just keep getting evidence more and more each day over the years that these communities are not a healthy environment for no black woman or child, not even for black men. So it's like, you have to make some hard choices in order to save yourself and to pull yourself out of that dark rooted black hole of poverty and violence and crime and all sorts of assault, that comes with living in a predominantly black environment, especially in a major city that is democratic run. And it's like, we have the bar so low for black men because there's so many examples of quote unquote degenerate black men who do not do anything. So just having a man that works is something like, wow, well, at least he works. I got something,
Right.
and it's easy to hold on to that because, if you let that go, there's not that many men who even at least work, at least a job that pays a living wage. There's not that many men to really choose from. So then it's like, then you face with another issue of how long can you be alone if you were never to find a man to top the man that you had to leave. And then that comes with a whole nother rate of issues because a lot of Black women fear being alone. I mean, if we look in the social programming, we've been programmed to look for some sort of knight in shining armor or Prince Charming since we were little girls. And since we were little girls, we've had an attraction to boys. So it's like trying to lose a certain amount of attachment to these men is a very hard process. I'm even struggling it with myself. I haven't been intimate with a man in years, but you know, I have moments where I'm like, I just want the energy around me. I just want the comfort around me. But then
Right.
and of course, because I've been told as a Black woman that I'm ugly, too dark to be pretty, too ghetto to be liked by a man of a certain class, it's like I sometimes have to push through my feelings of unworthiness to even explore my options to other races of men, you know? And just know that that was done deliberately because there is a pimp game being played here where these men are plotting and planning ways to have complete control and domination over Black women. So they're doing this on purpose. And that is the part that pisses a lot of Black women like myself and other divestors off because we know they're playing in our faces on purpose, you know?
Right.
So now, do you feel like there's a sect that is fake divestors and they're not really divested?
I only came across a few over the years. Well, they didn't really claim divestment. I came across a lot of women that claim to be feminist minded and pro woman,
Mm.
but when you throw a man in the mix, that's when the claws come out and she becomes a little treacherous. So not a whole lot, but I've come across those women. I've had women that I was trying to work with in order to create communities that were just Black women and children. And I had somebody who said that they had land available for us to do this, and we were trying to plan and plot.
Oh wow.
And at the last minute, those women kind of like just backed away from me because they realized I was going to actually go through with it, you
Oh,
know?
you serious, right?
Because a lot of, I think two of them had sons, so they were questioning like, well, what about my son? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I think the rules that we came up with that I thought we all agreed to was when he get a certain age, then he will have to go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they didn't, but I didn't know until the last minute that they didn't agree with that plan because they still have hope that Black men can change. I just kind of lost that faith and hope in Black men as a collective because I kind of feel like with me studying astrology and everything like that, if that was to happen, it would have happened by now. Because Black women's been on this awakening journey since around 2016 that I've seen, where it's actually been a collective type awakening. And I kind of feel like the Black women who are still asleep will stay asleep. And the Black men who hate Black women will stay hating Black women by
Right.
this time. You know, like it was in the stars, it was in the astrology. It's like the timeline matched up to where there should have been some sort of collective um transformation type process that should have taken place where we would have been brought together. I don't know if you know, but like on social media around like 2017, a lot of Black people, Black men and women, were talking about adopting African traditional religion, praying to the ancestors, hoodoo, voodoo, whatever you want to
I
call it.
remember that.
Right. Around that time, everybody was getting heavy into it because I kind of believe that our African ancestors was waiting on that time period around the time of the eclipse in 2017 to really try to waken up Black people, especially Black men. When it, like a lot of people when they say wake, I'm woke, they're talking about racism, but we are talking about woke when it comes to sexism and misogyny, you know. So it's like,
Why is it always about race? I mean, yes, racism is an issue. I don't feel I feel like personally it's not our issue to fight. So it's like, okay, like we know about racism. We all understand it collectively. We understand that quite well. But why is it that for some reason these men don't understand that what they need to wake up from and divest themselves from is the patriarchy? Y'all need to find y'all own identity as men outside of trying to adopt patriarchy because it's
because
not.
they still want to be in power. They want the power that they see
That's
from
the
colored men.
biggest problem that I see that they have, that black men have. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, they
Black
don't realize how the patriarchy and misogyny and white supremacy has skewed their way of
It
thinking.
worked. It completely got them in a chokehold.
Yeah, that it has them in such a chokehold that they're now mad at us because we're not letting them lead us off a cliff right back to the plantation with the mindset. And that's where the problem is. They should be wanting better for themselves. They should have been adapting along with black women over these last several
It should
decades.
have been evolving.
They should have been evolving, but they're okay staying stagnant in the mindset of thinking, oh, I'll be able to control that black woman just like the white man controls us. That's why when they see a black woman with a white man, they get upset because they know in comparison to that white man, they still have no power. And that white man now got a black woman too. How dare she? That's the rhetoric. Is about having control, but they don't even know what it is to be a man within their own demographic because they haven't sat down and formulated that themselves. We can't do it for them because trust and believe if we could, they still wouldn't listen.
Yeah, they're not gonna listen to you. They don't feel like we know what manhood is, and we don't know what you can't tell me what a man is. Like obviously you don't know. Like you said, you listened to Ace podcast, and when he asked them that question, I didn't see that episode. I did not see that clip. When he
I'll send it
asked
to
the
you.
men the question, they didn't know how to answer what being a man is.
Yeah, Tanisha, I don't know if you follow Ace Metaphor on Instagram. But he had a panel of all black men and asked them like what is their definition of being a man. And it's one bald-headed gentleman who talks entirely more with nothing. He talks too much and don't say much, but he pretty much was just like, we were raised to know what not to do, but they were never really raised to be men, so they grew up just knowing what not to do, and they're trying to survive through life just making sure they implement the things they were taught not to do. And I listened to that. I had listened to it twice. I was like, I think I'm confused. I was like, so you guys were not taught to be men. You were not taught any type of emotional maturity at all. But then y'all are yelling on these podcasts y'all got from Jeff Bezos, these microphones you got from Jeff Bezos, about what a woman needs to do to be submitting to you when you don't know where to go, you don't know how to lead, you don't know how to provide, and if you do provide, it has to be based on conditions at our expense. Y'all are contradicting yourselves, and it looks really weird.
I mean, I think that men like you're describing, those men are able to thrive in the community because I have to say it exactly like this. Most black women worship black men.
Mm-hmm.
So when you worship somebody who does absolutely nothing for you and you just worship them for simply existing, that's when men like that can thrive in the community. And a lot of black mothers have a lot more empathy for their sons, especially the sons that did not have fathers in their life, because they felt like, he was going to be the one to suffer the most in that dynamic. So when you have empathy for a group of men who uh hate you, it's like that has to be a mental illness of some sort. And I kind of feel like that's why I call it Stockholm. And I said a few months ago, the sister's treatment plan needs to be for Stockholm first, and then PTSD, and then for depression and anxiety in that order, in order to kind of remove us from this pin spell that black men have us under. Because the whole I did a blog about it. The whole pimping culture came around the 60s and 70s. And I think that since then black men have had an agenda to try to rule over black women and also climb their ways to the top to try to
Right.
rule over everybody. And I think that they are in a secret society planning something to do exactly that. And when they come into power, it's not to liberate nobody but themselves, and it's to enslave everybody else.
Oh
Now
yeah,
we have
I agree with that 100%. They not
So
out there nobody.
so of course they can't divine they can't define what a man is, because the only thing they know about being a man is how to play, hunt, and fuck. That's it. And maybe pay some bills if they even want to do that.
Right.
They
Because
don't
they
even want to
yelling
pay
about
child
that.
support. They don't even want they want 50-50. It's like they're trying to redefine being a man to where they are the king on the chessboard that can kick his feet up while everybody else do the work for him. So
Right.
it's like that's why they like chess so much, because they know that position of the king does the less work than everybody else on the chessboard, especially the queen. I'm just have to throw that analogy out there. And it's just like all they know is pimping. They've been knowing pimping since the Moors back in the 1600s.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's been their plan all along, to climb their way to the top and rule over everybody else and make them their slaves
Right. At our expense.
at our expense through our womb. They want to do it through our womb. That's why I shared that post about that man saying, I found out my girlfriend cheated on me and I don't want her to kick me out, so I might as well try to get her pregnant, thinking that it's gonna, like, you can't live out on your own and leave that person and leave her completely alone. You gotta knock her up with a baby.
But
Like
they've been plotting to get people pregnant for a while. I like my That's what happened in my situation. It was a plot. And I didn't know that men were even doing things like that until I met a coworker a couple of years later where he was like, "Oh no, I got my baby mama pregnant on purpose. Like I plotted to
Mhm.
get her
Oh,
pregnant."
yes, they do that. Mhm.
I didn't know that was a thing. Like it was after I was already deep in my pregnancy when my baby daddy was like, "Yeah, I tampered with the condom. I had to get you pregnant. I had to find a way to keep you."
wow.
To
Yeah, they
just abandon me pregnant and our child. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like I didn't even know that was a thing prior to meeting that man because I had never been in that situation.
I mean, think
That's
about it.
very true.
These men, all they know is war, and I think it's just a certain biological bloodthirst that is present in a majority of men to want to conquer and dominate something, so they can feel that power kind of feels like an orgasmic feeling to them, versus women. Our orgasmic feeling comes from nurturing. I don't know if you can relate to that,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
pampering, especially ourselves, pampering ourselves, nurturing ourselves, comforting
Right.
others, pampering others, nurturing others. Like that's our orgasmic feeling. And it's like for men, their orgasm comes from hunt, capture, release, or kill. That it's just I think it's just biological. A lot of people ask like, is male behavior biological? That's what I personally believe. Now I'm not a scientist. I can't identify a gene that makes it that way, but that's just my opinion, just basing on observation of men and listening to what men be talking about and listening to what women talk about. It could be a little bit of socialization there, but I think it's even present in young children before they even are told who they are and what they can become you know
Yeah, I
Right.
agree with that. That's why I don't believe when they say when doctors or a scientist said that a male brain and a female brain, there's no difference. Like there's definitely, to me, there's differences. There just is. Like they think completely different than we think.
hmm
That you can see it in the children. Like they act and they move and they generally play with certain things. Like they think completely different than the opposite sex. So
yeah. And I think that we have a lot of black men did not have fathers that took them fishing and took them hunting, so they didn't have alternative ways to kind of soothe that bloodthirst that they had. Instead they joined gangs and started shooting up corners, and they sold drugs, and they played cops and robbers with the police. Like they have to have something to calm those high testosterone levels within their body in order to get a sort of a satisfaction of dominating something. It's just something inherent in them. I mean, it's not just black men. I see it in every race of man. Every race of man.
Right. Yeah. All
So
right. I'm going to share another video. Let me see.
Okay.
Which one am I going to share?
In the community, it is anytime you see people try to put up boundaries around something very sacred, there's upheaval. There is something about a woman, there's something about a demographic of women that's the most unprotected, the most sexually violated, perpetually abandoned, perpetually turned into single mothers. There's something about a demographic of women really working very hard to improve their circumstances, right? Because many things are out of their control. So while many of these women are trying to improve their circumstances, they're also choosing to put up boundaries to kind of either divest, distance, or keep themselves away from people that don't share the same values or unable to kind of show up in a way that says, I love you in action. Because at the end of the day, guys, whatever you want to call it, just understand that people put their money or invest their time consistently into things that they value. And for some reason, you don't really see that too much in the community outside of the woman. Okay. So there's something around there's between the systematic issue, and as you guys know, with Black people, where obviously there's a lot of systematic conditioning, especially within our men, and also they are twice as impacted. But understand this, woman, uh, Black women, you have to learn when to choose yourself. You have to learn when to break these karmic cycles. Breaking karma is legitimately not only in what you do, it is in what you choose to accept, what you are allowing. A lot of these men are saying you need to take accountability, but they don't realize that you taking accountability is you choosing to either divest or stay with the situations because you simply don't have any idea what you're doing wrong, right? And mind you, let's say the entire community is fucked up, but it's the fact that while you're trying to make better decisions to kind of keep yourself in, from situations where in which you might not have better judgment, people are getting upset about that, right? Many men are saying things like taking accountability, and honestly, it's a little bit of a slap in the face because there's something around the people with the lowest responsibility and show signs of really not being of leadership qualities that are really telling women they need to be held accountable. And I'm trying to figure out, like, accountable for what? But let's say we do. Just know that us divesting or us trying to distance ourselves from men that are obviously not doing well through obviously having these high standards. Mind you, the standards are pretty much standard everywhere else. But there's something about Black women really having those boundaries that are creating a lot of upheaval, especially amongst the men, and the men feeling as though they're being deprived of something. But Black women, just know that there's a long history of us being exploited for what we have to offer while simultaneously never being protected or loved adequately. You know how
She's right. I agree.
So yeah, like this when I watched this video and I seen it when we was planning this podcast today, that's why I was thinking, and I agree with Tanisha, like divest, like don't just say, oh, I'm a divester, I'm divesting, and like divesting to me is much more than just you was hurt,
Talking about it.
you made bad decisions with this guy, that guy, and now you're so hurt and you're vengeful, and it's like F these dudes over here because they hurt me so bad. It's like you also have to you have to do it for yourself, and you have to heal certain parts of yourself, and it's like about us having better standards and that accountability aspect and taking care of yourself as the reason for why you're choosing that, you know what, this is what I need to do. I need to distance myself, like she said, from these people. And like Tanisha said, like self-preservation, because a lot of us lack discernment, self-preservation. Male worshipers are still also stuck in that system of patriarchy, internalized misogyny. I can't stand no woman that's male identified, and they need to get the penis from out their brain. I call it they have penis floating around in their brains, and that's what they need to, they need a detox in order to divest.
There's still a lot of ones just like, oh well, I'm pro black love, and that's cool.
Hmm.
I am I am pro you do whatever's in your best interest.
Right.
I want to still have the hope that we all get the black love that we deserve. But is that realistic? And
Yeah.
I've sat back
Yeah.
for years. I've sat back for years and have believed that, things are gonna have to change. Cause woohoo, I've done all the things. All these things that men say that we should be doing, whatever, I've done all the things. And here I sit, still unmarried, made a single mother. I'm struggling to an extent because I have other things going on within life, but I have to keep my stuff held together because I have a child looking at me, a child that depends on me. At this point, divesting is I'm paying attention to my choices, my thoughts, and I am consciously choosing myself, like she said in the video. Like I'm taking accountability for my choices and my behaviors and how I act accordingly in certain things. And if that means I have to step aside from, these situations, then hey, that's just what I have to do if it's gonna make me a better person.
Right.
My heart really breaks for Black women, especially Black women that share children with Black men. Especially because a lot of Black women left their relationships with uh their children's father because of either abuse or because he's at war with her and trying to get control of her in her womb. So she got to still deal with some sort of controlling and destructive behaviors. I don't know too many Black women that have a healthy co-parenting relationship with Black men. You know,
Right.
I don't know too many. I'm not saying it's not out there, but my heart really breaks for Black women because it seems like the wolves kind of came off of our eyes as we became grown women. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know about you, but nobody in my childhood warned me
No.
about this spiritual warfare or this gender war. Nobody warned me
Oh
about
no.
what I
Hmm.
was walking myself into. I kind of was like thrown. I feel like many Black women, I was kind of like thrown to the wolves and had to come out crawling and kneel
In the
and
trenches.
crawling my way out of the war zone. You know what I'm saying? Even when my sister was killed, my mom was like, I don't want like living here in Atlanta. I don't feel safe here because we don't know the full circumstances that surrounds my sister's murder. And not only that, but other families were coming at my mom and trying to take my sister's children from her. So she said, I feel like it's time for us to move to a new state. My mom moved first and she kind of left me here by myself. And I was just like, I think I had to learn over the years, like many Black women do with their Black girls. I had to learn to be very independent
Right.
because the help and the support is just not there the way that we need. I'm hoping that, as I start to network more with Black women in certain positions to help, that I can create more like a resource list to
Hmm.
get Black women out of the entrapment of dysfunctional communities and families. Some somewhere where we can have uh rental assistance for Black women, utility assistance, transportation assistance,
Hmm.
business startup funds, stuff like that.
That sounds like an amazing idea.
Yeah, because we really need to work together, and this is why I kind of feel like one thing I will say about some male worshipers is that they don't just worship males. They're very community minded, so they will help Black women and Black men. You just got to learn how to navigate with them without saying anything negative about Black men because it will trigger that
Right.
Stockholm, you
Right.
know.
Mm.
And I think that that's what part of my divestment is. I had to separate myself learn how to build with myself. And then I had to come to that point where I realized I can't do this on my own. I mean, in a world of 7 billion people, I'm not meant to live my life alone. So then, because I had that time to separate myself from my native community, I'm able to look at other communities and see who can I go to add on to my tribe and build a new tribe and build a new family from there, you know? So right now I'm kind of in a stage of setting my foundation. And I think that that comes with a lot of I don't know if a lot of black women have a manual on how you can divest for your best interests. But
Mhm.
I think the first is the complete separatism of the divestment. You separate from the community, find a way to get to a community that is more diverse in cultures. So you can get a way of examining their cultures. I mean, those other communities are not as welcoming for Black women, but I kind of feel like one thing about white supremacy right now, they're talking a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a social
Right.
worker, I have been interviewing with a lot of people that ask me questions about that. So I don't know why the system is changing to be more diverse and inclusive and more equitable, because the idea is that the system wants to destroy you. But, I'm seeing some changes, slow but surely changes within the larger society. So this is the perfect time for Black women to try to use systematic support in order to level up herself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, look, like Goldman and Sachs investing in $10,000 grants to what? Uh, like 100 or 1 million. I don't know how many, but it's quite a few Black women for business startups. You got
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah, you got angel investors. There's a lot of talk about trying to approach advocacy from equity. Black Lives Matter went in the streets and tore up the place, but corporations and such, they do see a great investment in Black women. And I think that that's also what fuels the jealousy between Black men and Black women, is because Black men feel like we got welfare and we got college
Mhm.
scholarships and we got business investment, and they're investing in Black women, but they're not realizing that the behaviors are different amongst the collective of Black men and the collective of Black women.
Right.
We are just the better investment. So one thing about divestment is knowing where to find your resources at. That's where I'm at right now. Learning where to find your resources and building your foundation for your new life. Pick so let me back up. First you separate so you can get a clear view um from the outside looking in. So the community that you're a part of and assessing whether that community is healthy for you or whether you got to move on. Just like that lady said in the video. Then you go to the inner work where you do your looking glass self. I like to work with my clients on mirror work, looking at yourself, looking at what beliefs you are taught about yourself from your community, what beliefs that you believe about yourself that are negative and unhelpful. Then you kind of continuously work on reprogramming your mind to a new way of viewing yourself. I think in psychology, they call it looking glass self. Looking at yourself in a more healthy, holistic, humane way versus
Mhm.
the inhumane way that the community seems to look at Black women and girls.
Mhm.
As you're doing your transformation process, I went through a spiritual death. Now um that might not be everybody's journey, but that was my journey. But at some point, something clicks. You reach a breaking point, and you're kind of like, I'm at rock bottom. I have no one. It's just me. I have to get myself together and rebuild a new foundation for myself. And
Mhm.
then that's when you go looking for the resources that can help you build your foundation. Because, like I said, One thing about divesting, a lot of people think that means you're going to live a long, lonely life. No, you can build families. You can build a sisterhood. You
Right.
can still partner with somebody, whether you're a male, whether you like men or women. You can still partner with somebody healthy,
Mm-hmm.
because as you get healthy, if you believe in the law of attraction, you will attract more healthy partners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's like then you go build, but you have to build your foundation first, and you have to build yourself back up after shedding away all of those negative um beliefs about yourself as a black woman that was fed to you from not only the black community but the larger society that is racist and sexist and capitalist, So then you embrace, and all while you're doing this, you have to embrace a new way of living with ease, because then that is what helps you tap into your feminine. You have to learn to embrace a certain ease about yourself. I am going to work. I am going to grind. I am going to hustle, but I am also going to rest.
Right.
And I am going to also pamper myself. And I am going to also be gentle with myself. I'm going to nurture and comfort myself.
Right.
So it's a long process. Divestment is more than just fuck them niggas. It's more
Right.
than that. It's a holistic spiritual journey that you are undertaking in order to completely transform your life to be happier, healthier, and wealthier. And if
That,
you have a game plan, and if you have the right people in your circle, you can go from surviving to thriving in a matter of years.
That's well said.
yes, that was like really good and good, well explained.
Informative.
Mhm. All right, you guys. So I am going to play one more. I got like videos. No, actually, I got two more videos. But speaking of guys who got in their feelings over the article that came out last week, I do have this video. He is a psychologist. He's a guy, and I like his videos. They're always well informed. And he actually did not feel mad or bitter about what was said. He put logic to the situation because it's true. I mean,
I
let
think
me
I know who you're talking about.
yeah. Let me pull him up here. Put him on the screen.
I'm figuring out we follow a lot of the same people, so
I
I
don't
think I know who
follow
you're
him.
talking
But he
about.
be in my FYP so much. I don't follow him though. Let me
Is
is
it
he
Chad? Oh no,
um
I knew exactly who that
That,
is. Yeah.
this is us that he's talking about, right? This is our generation that he's talking about, right? They prefer men. They prefer men. They prefer men who are emotionally available, good communicators, and share similar values. Emotionally available, strike one. Good communicator, strike two. And share similar values, strike three. Too many of us are emotionally stunted. We do not communicate well, and we come in utilizing misogyny in order to attract these women. And we really think these women want us, dog? Come on, son. Come on, son. I be telling y'all be talking y'all way out of panties.
Yeah, I saw that one today on my FYP.
I mean, but I mean that's definitely even if you're not what's funny and like, about how karma works. And if you consider, God, if you believe in God and you want to say God don't play about us, and those sayings, you should have listened to a black woman, etc., 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 about that, right? It just reminded me of karma though, and it reminded me of all these talking points that they always had. Kitten Hills said it was going to be a cold winter. Did he used to say like it's going to be a cold season or a cold winter for us or some crap? And now it's like getting really cold and frozen out here for y'all. And even if women are not divested, if anything, they are fed up. And they it's not worth it anymore. It's not even worth it anymore to deal with y'all. It's because I think they're starting to realize I'm dealing with y'all for less. Like you can't even give good conversation.
Well, a lot of them don't have talking points. They don't know how to communicate. But it's just like the um the rhetoric of the guys that are up in arms like all women want is, BBLs and to twerk and want to take my money. And one of the guys was just like, what money?
Yeah,
These
well,
women are literally out here doing it for themselves, and y'all are mad that y'all are not needed. One of the other guys was like, "Yeah, well, if you doing all of this, there's not a need for me."
what they hit them with the TD Jakes. Um,
Oh, Jesus.
if you can't create a need for me to fill, then I have no use for you. And it's just like, wow, the destitute and the depression of it all, like the insecurity of it all, is just like, so if we got our own, we can get our own money, we can do things now. We don't really need your John Hancock or anything. I can buy my own home now. I can do all of these things and navigate the world on my own and do it better and more efficiently, might I add, and take care of the house and take care of my children. Now women are starting to wake up and realize, like, then what do I need you for?
What's crazy that you brought up TD Jakes is there's 21 years between me and my sister. And I tried to have that conversation with her. She's like, well, I understood exactly what he meant. I was like,
Yeah.
how did you understand exactly what he meant when you're exactly the woman he's talking about? I was like,
Mm,
you're the independent woman with all the degrees. You just completed your doctorate degree and you're still a single mother who is living by yourself and ain't got no man because you don't have a man that can fulfill a need because you're doing it yourself. I said, you're the woman he's talking about. Well, that's not how I took it. I said, girl, you got more documents than me. You still couldn't see that shit? Put your reading glasses on. My sister was like, that's not what he meant. But then when I said, well, what did he mean? She
yeah,
couldn't
what
explain it. She couldn't explain it. And I was just like, they're mad, like, oh, we're raising women to be men. Then what are you raising the men to be? They wasn't raised. Duh. It's
mm-hmm.
just, it's weird. It's weird.
What Kevin Samuels used to say, Aya, was winter is coming.
Yeah, winter's coming. Oh my God.
Winter is coming, and he was trying to say that almost even though the running joke is it's black women and women in general who kick men out the house, not the other way around.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like a fallacy in a sense. Because he would say winter is coming, I guess in a way like some people will be like, who's going to keep you warm at night, stuff like
This
that.
heated blanket from Walmart.
Right, exactly. And they got heated blankets and weighted blankets that make you feel
Yep.
comfortable. So it's like, that was his joke. But, I had brought up a point to some guy I was talking to. No, he's no longer important, but um and he was like a Kevin Samuels fan, and we would get into little debates about things that Kevin Samuels would say. And I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? You know how I know that there is a sort of a pimp game, and Kevin Samuels kind of positions himself to be like a match. It's because not once does he bring up the word love or
Mhm.
companionship
Nope.
or even like. He doesn't even say like men have to actually like women. Men have to love women. Men have to care about women. It was just all about serve me, look good, and be my homie that I can have fun with sometimes. That's like the gist of, and I've watched several of his videos. That's like the gist of what he's saying. Look good, serve me, and let's have fun sometimes like you're my homie. You know? Nothing about that deep, compassionate, loving, tender, gentle care that we as women need. And it's so funny because the lady in the first video, she pretty much said, like, we're not getting the loving care that we deserve. So
Right.
when we say that we're going to either find a way to give it ourselves or find a sisterhood that's going to wrap us in their arms like on some waiting to hell type shit, we're going to get it. And if you're not giving it to us, then what are we supposed to do? Beg you for it? And I kind of feel like that's what a lot of men want us to do. They want us to come begging them because back in the 60s and 70s, our grandmothers, they try to make it seem like a lot of our grandmothers put up with our granddaddy shit. Not in my family. They had no problem kicking the men out the house. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it wasn't because they were choosing welfare over them either. It was because they were fucking up and
Mhm.
they were not holding up their end of the deal in the relationship, you know? And it's
You
like
can.
back in the 60s and 70s, you had baby, please take me back. I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the kind of music, like the baby come back type stuff. And then say around like the late 80s, early 90s, then you had a little bit of mixture of the NWA, fuck the police, and then all that bitch hole stuff. And then you had what Jodeci and God forbid for me for saying his name, R. Kelly, talking about something I don't see, you know, came all about sex, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then it just progressively went worse from there. Like these men been dodging any sort of transformative work to
Mhm.
actually be the man that we need. And we're not asking much of them. I did an article where I said a man divine. I put 4 top requirements to be a man divine: protect, profess, provide, procreate. That's basic shit.
Right.
And if you can't do basic, bare minimum type stuff, then maybe it's something like that guy said in that article. Maybe it's something work that you need to do on yourself.
But see, we're dealing with men again who have been praised for mediocrity. So why would they ever feel like they need to do any work? Like that is just it's kickback. And even the men who have that rhetoric that'll bring up what grandma and grandpa did, not once have the men ever asked their grandma was they happy. Not once. Did they ever ask grandma was they happy? Or they sit in households where they see their mama working 2 jobs and they come home and cooking and cleaning and think that it's normal, and then they be mad at mama because mama didn't spend enough time with them, but never mad at the man that abandoned them.
Right.
Like it's counterproductive. That's why to a certain extent it's like I'm not about to argue with you, sir, if you don't have joint custody of your kid. We ain't got nothing to talk about. There's nothing that you're saying that's of any relevance when you can't even respect women who have the same skin color as your mother. If you disrespecting black women and you don't have joint custody of your kid, you're done. There's nothing that we need to talk about because you made the decisions to be sorry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's more excuses to protect their mediocrity than it is to hold them accountable. And then they throw, oh, black women are never accountable. In what context? And whenever I ask that, they can't never come up with an answer that ain't some bull they done pulled from their butt.
I feel like most times when I see that and see them talking about and going on about us and not wanting to be accountable, they're always talking about basically we can still, like I said, whenever they throw talking points up, I can always circle it back around to you because most times it's like, oh, you just, you need to be accountable for the choices you made. You just picked bad men. You just, you didn't choose the right guy. I mean, instead of why can't y'all just be good men?
Right.
Well,
Um.
I know recently, Aya, we had a conversation about a dialogue between a friend of mine. And it is laughable to me when I hear men say, oh, well, women don't hold each other accountable. I had a friend or have a friend that I literally had to have the tough conversation like, listen, you's out of control. And you got some stuff you need to be working on, some stuff you need to pull together because there are other things that are more important than your foolishness. You got a lot more to lose if you keep acting the way that you act. And I really, after that conversation, I realized I've constantly been trying to hold this particular friend, hold her accountable for her mess. So when I hear a man be like, y'all don't hold nobody accountable, bull, I feel like I be talking more than Oprah when it come down to trying to hold people accountable, including myself.
They're not present when we're having our girl talks
Hmm.
and we're sitting around drinking wine, sipping wine, and having talks like this. Because I was in groups. I was in one group called Ascending Black Love. Back when I was adopting Pan African type
Hmm.
ideologies,
Mm.
and we used to sit around and talk about us. me and the other sisters. These are the mistakes we've made. This is how we ended up in our situation. This is where we need to be accountable. I think men just don't realize that most women who talk like me, you, and all of us talk is we've already done that work. We're the ones that love the coaches. We're the one that loves the therapists. We're the one that have healing retreats and circles.
Yeah. I was
We're
just
the ones doing the work.
somebody that a guy that like a week or so ago, like, listen, the only difference because he was getting upset, and I was like, he's like, I don't understand. Like, y'all act like y'all perfect. No, nobody's perfect. Good
Nope.
or none of us are perfect. But what I will tell you, the difference is between black women and black men is that y'all refuse to grow and evolve and catch up, and we have made strides and we have made necessary changes and we have did the work, whether it be through therapy, healing, finding spiritual, whatever it is that homegirl need to do for her mental health. We have been doing it, and we are more open to accepting that accountability, holding ourselves. First of all, we have emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence always allows you to correct and check yourself when you see that you fucking up. Y'all don't seem to have that at all. So when you lack self-awareness, how can you self-correct? I don't understand. But we don't have a problem accepting accountability, or if somebody, or like we having these conversations and we like, listen, this is where we slack. And I always say, like, our standards could be better and we need to stop. Like,
Right.
we can kind of take what the feedback and roll with it. Whereas if anybody gives y'all any type of feedback or pushback at all, here y'all go crying.
All the time.
Hmm, yeah. So do you feel like, because I'm gonna play one more video. You know what? Let me play the video because this will be my last point that I want to touch on about them. Before I decide, or before I ask the question, should Black women consider divesting? For like, should we all consider divesting? I'm gonna just play this video to see if this possibility was to happen. Would Black women divesting need to be what happened? So that's gonna be my question. Let me pull this video up.
Podcast makes its rounds on the internet. I just want you to know that this exists in the world.
Because of like this capitalism, this patriarchy, this imperialism, but they all feed each other and collaborate. So it's like what was it? The revolution starts here. So like for a lot of people, they would have to come to terms with the fact that patriarchy doesn't necessarily serve me just because I'm a man. Though, you know what I mean? There are benefits that I may reap from it. It does not actually serve.
Before the next Dude Bro Alpha Male podcast makes its rounds on the internet, I just want you to know that this exists in the world.
Yeah, so I feel like, do you feel like, let's just call it in a perfect world, because we could wish for a lot of things in a perfect world. But in a perfect world, do you feel like if Black men, because just FYI disclaimer for people watching, we're Black, so I'm gonna always refer in reference to Black people and Black men when I'm talking, and not all men.
Right.
But do you think that if all Black men decided that they were going to divest themselves and release the shackles that are on their minds from the patriarchy, would that make things better between Black men and Black women?
I think that it could be a start, but they need to be willing to do the work to help build themselves up mentally and learn some emotional maturity. The starting to divest from the patriarchy is just the beginning. And history has showed us if stuff gets a little tough for them, they run and they never come back. And it's always an excuse for why they left. So if they actually were going to divest from the patriarchy, in my opinion, that's the first step. The second step is getting into therapy and learning how your biases has affected the people in your life, so that you know how to change the behavior and start making more decisions that are not so harshly affecting other people, to where you're not a liability. I feel like that would be like that's the first step.
Hmm. Tanisha, you on mute.
And Lynn, I
Uh-huh.
like your idea of there being a step. I think that what we need to do is, as a collective of Black women, create a 12-step program for there to be some sort of reconciliation possible in the future. If they were to do XYZ, then we will do XYZ and meet in the middle.
Oh,
And it's like, I think that that's something that we can work on as a collective.
Right.
Like, get, and I'm talking about women who are already divested from the community. Because if they are within a community and they are shackled to that pimparchy, then they're probably got Stockholm syndrome and they're going to be solely on the Black man's side.
mm,
Notice that I say the reason why we need divested women is because they're going to serve Black women's best interests. They're going
right.
to put our needs first and say, we're going to put our needs first, and you have to meet all of our needs first before we can um reconcile with you. Because at the end of the day, Black men been at war with Black women, not the other way around. And we cannot
Mhm.
separate ourselves from that fact. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there has to be some sort of 12-step program. And like you said, I think the first step is admitting defeat. And I'm talking about tracing all the way back
Mm.
to slavery.
What? Like that is like you know what? I never. That's yeah. Admitting defeat would be the first step.
Because I remember I keep seeing this picture in my mind of an artist who did this artwork about how the woman was being raped by the slave
Mm.
master, and she was looking at the man like, go get him, and he in the to the Black man, and the Black man had his head down like, I don't want to fight him, type. That's where that certain betrayal comes from, because it's always been the Black man's job to protect the Black woman, even
Right.
before we came over here in shackles and chains. It's
Right.
always been their job to safeguard their people and protect their people. That's their basic job that they got. Provide and protect. That's two things that they got to do. Provide and protect. Get that right first. Get the basics right first. That's why I was talking about the 4 basics that I had for Black men. I didn't talk about the 3 R's: resourceful, respectful, and responsible. These are basic ABCs type stuff that they should
Right.
know as men. But first, I think it comes from admitting defeat. Apologize to your people for
Right.
not defeating the white man when he came over and took your people. All
Yeah.
we've been doing is we tried cuddling Black men and making them the victim and pampering them and
Right.
nurturing them and supporting them.
Mm.
And all they do, and look at the Black femicide rates going up. And you got Black women out in the streets marching for you. Come on now. The betrayal is cut too deep. And I think that there are some extreme women who want straight up revenge. But I'm saying we can give you a chance if you follow this 12-step program. How about that?
That would be like such a good like I would like to see that visualized and actually see those who are like making a commitment to it. I don't know what hashtag can come out so that it can be tracked, but that would be a very good idea. I think like meet
I
our
think
list.
the 12-step program would give something, would give like a playbook of how do we get the community kind of back to a standing still, and they would have to do the work, or it's not gonna work. It
But you know, I
doesn't
feel like
completely fall
perfect
on us.
in a perfect world. I don't
Yeah.
in a perfect world, I would imagine like there would be no pushback and we'll have
Um.
more for that than against it. But it's
Nah.
that but I just think it'll
Nah.
be so much like
Pushback. Why I gotta do this?
yeah,
You
and
can't
like
say you want the
they
community
want to be
together if you don't.
leaders and da, 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 da. Like they don't want to listen and it's like for the love of God, they don't want to listen to no black woman.
No.
I feel like if anybody, if I feel like this, if any Black man who rejects any sort of effort to any sort of reconciliation with Black women, those are the Black men that we are divesting from in the first damn place. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
True that.
But I think that if we come up with a list, it don't have to be 12 steps. I said 12 steps because I was thinking NA and AA. But
Right.
come up with a list. First, and they have to admit defeat publicly. That's going to be hard.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
that's a
have to
powerful
admit that they
step.
failed their people. I mean, Africa, a few years ago, I saw that some leaders in
Yeah,
Africa were like
apologize.
apologizing for slavery.
Apologizing.
Right. Black men have to admit we did not fight for our people.
Yeah.
We allowed our people to get oppressed.
And I
And
think
then when
that would be liberating for them too. Like that would be a weight off of your shoulders because I feel like their ancestral trauma is so severe. It's like, it's just so all over them. And it's like just to free yourself from whatever it is, free yourself. I think that would be a huge step if they were to do that.
that
Yeah.
will be, that will let me know that, but I don't want to get biblical. I'm not a Christian, but there's some things I take from the Bible. Pride is a deadly sin for a reason. And I kind of feel like when you're in a position where you're defeated and you can't admit that you're defeated, all you do is continue to self-sabotage yourself, because you have to come to a point where you say, I have a problem. That's why in all the NA and AA meetings, they say, admit to the problem first so you can look at it from a different lens.
Right.
You can look at it saying, this is a problem. And automatically your brain goes and click and says, how do I solve this problem? If you have a healthy mind, mind you. If you have a
Right.
healthy mind and you're presented with a problem, your mind should automatically switch on, how do I solve this problem? You know? So then first admit to a defeat. Admit that there's a problem. Our race of people is defeated in this moment. Well, not in this moment, but we've been defeated for over 400 years.
Right.
We have to admit to our defeat, and we have to, since these men want to be leaders and alpha so bad, we have to put that weight on their shoulders. Because you can't be an alpha in a leader if you don't take accountability for the
Mhm.
failure of your people who's under you. Period. Y'all want to be leaders so bad? This is what it
Lead.
takes to be a leader. You can't be a
Right.
leader and say it's the woman's fault.
Right.
With
It
no
doesn't make
plan.
it doesn't make sense.
With no plan.
All right, you guys. So we are coming up on 2 hours. So I'm gonna do the takeaway. We're gonna do the takeaway. So Tanisha, the takeaway is always just your final thoughts. So whoever wants to go first.
Okay. You asking me for my final thought?
Yeah, you could go first. Do your final thoughts.
Okay. My final thought is this: put yourself first and your sisterhood first. This is a crucial time for Black women where attacks against our life is causing us to continue on having mental health issues, and it's causing a repeat recurring pattern of trauma and abuse. We have to release ourselves from the shackle of this cycle of abuse in order to save ourselves. So my opinion is divestment is your best answer for now. If you are having a hard time leaving a community that does not promote your well-being, that does not promote your liberation, that does not promote your success, you have to separate yourself from that community in order to save yourself. And after you save yourself, then you go back to your community and see who else you can save. That's my takeaway.
Um, my takeaway, in reference to should Black women divest from Black men, I feel like number one, it should be an individual decision, and not one that's being taken lightly. Acknowledge if you're one of the people saying you're divesting, acknowledge if it's coming from a place of hurt or is it really coming from a place of betterment for yourself. Me personally, I agree. Make sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of yourself and the community that you want to build around you, because as of right now, there is some type of spiritual warfare against Black women, and we have to band together to build these villages. But make sure when you're divesting, your individual reason for doing it is for the betterment of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, and whatever other things that you need to do. Make sure you're doing it for yourself and you're putting yourself first before you just decide to make divestment the trigger word of 2022.
The trigger. I love how you talk. You be cracking me up.
I'm just saying.
So my final thought is the same sentiments that both of you guys had. I feel like divesting should be your personal choice. So I mean, by all means, if you feel like you're not ready to, or you feel like you don't have to, you don't need to, then don't, because you should always do it for the right reasons. Know why you are divesting and make sure you are doing it for yourself. And I also just want to reiterate, even if you don't divest, just have a level of discernment and awareness, and don't just walk out here blinded and thinking that we don't have this issue going on within our community that is definitely clearly going on and happening in our community, and it's more and more aggressive towards Black women in the community. So always do what's best for you and stay safe as Black women, and that's my takeaway. um so yeah, you guys, we are going to end the podcast now, and we will be back next Tuesday or the Tuesday after. I don't know. My schedule is getting kind of busy lately, but you will catch us on a Tuesday. See you guys later.